did do a pretty substantial cosmetic and structural shift to the admin side. Whereas previously your public site or your end user site and your admin had the same branding, what you'll notice immediately now is that when you come to the admin side, you're going to see the AccessGov logo at the top with this same branding structure. The public side for your sites that exist now will not be modified cosmetically. It will still appear the same to your end users. So there won't be a big shift for the general community visiting your portals. What you will know for the admins and what you'll see change is that the admin menu dropdown that was on the public side previously is no longer there. You have to go to the admin dashboard and you'll see that navigation change when you're directed over. So as you can see, public side has the branding still, and then we jumped over to the admin. This is the home dashboard, and it should feel pretty familiar. Our intention going forward is to utilize this for a richer experience for you guys. So you'll see more on here as the platform and product continues to evolve. But right now, what you'll notice is we have the submissions, which you will be familiar with if you're reviewers in your portal. The sites and pages, this is how the navigation is probably shifted most within the pages function in the admin. The data sources are still here, and the user management piece has also taken a significant shift cosmetically and functionally that we're pretty excited about. What you will notice off the bat here is that the address book has gone away. We found that the utilization of that was very minimal. So we have deprecated the address book, and any contact forms that exist out there are being converted to web forms. And any contact form that you want to simulate, you can simply create a web form for going forward. So I think for the benefit of everybody involved here, we'll start on sites and pages so that we can speak to how the structure is shifting for the whole underlying format. And then we can discuss and we'll demonstrate the other pieces based off that new structure. So what you will notice as well, which I did not point out yet, is that the admin dropdown that used to be at the top is now in a condensed navigation on the left here. And this is accessible from all the pages that you'll be visiting in the admin. The nice thing about this is you can jump around really quickly, and you can see the associated icons here from your dashboard associated with these major 4 functions here. So I am going to jump into sites and pages. And so this is the sites and pages navigation. What you'll notice immediately is that we have 2 sites in this example. As Jason mentioned earlier, we've introduced private sites as well. So for all those out there currently that have your parent portal or your parent site, you'll see that in here, the title here, the ability to navigate to the site, like you saw earlier. You can open it up from there now. The difference being between this and the private site is what we've introduced here is that we've had asks from different agencies and partners to do sort of an intranet experience. As you know, your AccessGov portals are open to everybody in the public, and that has been the primary use in the past. And now we've actually given you the ability to restrict through user management who can actually visit certain sites. So what I'll say at the beginning is currently, if you want a new site set up, you'll need to contact NIC Montana so that we can get that going for you. But within sites, we've introduced folders. So think of this as a site is what you have today where you have the home page and the guided search, and it's really that engagement portal for your constituents. What we have had in the past is a lot of our partners, and I noticed HHS is on the call, so we'll use them for the example. They have a lot of child portals. So they have the DPHHS parent site, and then below that they have primary care and child and family services and all those things. What we found in the past is that people want those to all be linked so that their portfolio can build on the public side. But we didn't find a lot of people managing the actual homepage and the guided search for those specific things. So in the new structure, child and family services and the primary care, for instance, would be able to be folders within your sites. And we're actually allowing the ability to create folders at will. So in the past, if you wanted additional child portals, you had to get us on the phone. But now you can actually create them here by simply clicking new folder and giving them the display label that's most friendly to you. And this is that label that you've seen in the past that shows up in your public directory for different divisions and programs. And optionally, you can provide the name in the URL. This is the little name key up here in the URL. If you don't provide it, the system will simply generate a random code to put in there. So if you create an example folder here, and I'm creating this under the private demonstration site. Actually, I'm creating this under the demonstration site, excuse me. So you'll see that the new folder is in here now. The great thing about this is we've also implemented granting permissions scoped into folders. So if you have, we've had that happen a few times where we've had a request to only give reviewership or form editing permissions to specific forms. The nice thing about this is you can put the forms within these different folders. And then as your user managers, whoever that may be, they can go in and actually just give you access to whatever is in each folder. So that is a really nice piece. We've cut out a lot of work in between for you guys so that hopefully we make that process a lot easier for standing up. And we've also got all of the pages rolling up from the folders, and you can see their areas here for different divisions and programs. Other shifts here, in the past, we have the widgets that allowed you to grab the code to put onto, say, your own website and embed these different features throughout wherever you may desire. That has moved up to this little icon up here in the top. If you have the desire to modify the display label for your different sites, or the folders, you can do that here with a simple update. And then we also give the ability to delete folders and sites. Of course, use this with caution. The sites actually can't be deleted unless they don't have any folders and content within them. That is intentional just to hopefully reduce the occurrences where a lot of content is getting deleted unintentionally. And same with the folders. If you delete the folder, you're going to delete all the content within it. So be careful with that. Another feature that we have introduced here to give you some more flexibility as well is we've had a lot of people who want to be able to move pages from different folders or sites to sites. So in the past, you had to call us up to do that for you. We've actually introduced it for each page here. When you click on the little ellipsis over here, your page editors and your admins will have the ability to move these. So right now, this is within, so I just got a question for the group. Does NIC Montana have the ability to restore our mistakes? We do have the ability to go in, and I guess, Sue-Ann, can you please elaborate on which mistakes you're referring to?
I'm deleting things, I'm guessing.
Okay, yeah. So, yes, we have the ability to go in as staff and remediate those issues. Again, there will be some work that goes into that, so just be careful. If when in doubt, don't delete anything that you think you might use in the future. The same way that before when you've had the ability to delete pages, just make sure that if you're going to delete those, you don't intend to use them in the future. If you just want to suspend them, then simply go into the forms and make sure to set start and end dates as appropriate.
I would also caution we don't have like a secret admin to undelete your things. We have to go onto the server and dig them back out. So it's a bit of a process.
Right.
So do be careful.
That is a great question, though. So, and a common usage here is we do have some partners that have sandbox sites or areas that they're kind of building their things to play around with. So the nice thing about this is if you want to move those, we have, right now we're in specific division within your demonstration site. So I'm actually going to click on move because I want to move this demonstration form. And you'll see you actually have the list of the different places that you can actually move this. So if you've created a page in the wrong division or you've created it somewhere that you wanted to test it and you can move it out now, this is what actually allows you and where you'll go to make that modification. So I'm going to move it from this area to, let's do example folder. So now you'll actually see that our demonstration form has been moved to the example area. So when I click on here, you can actually see that move take effect. Additionally, we didn't have actual tied versions in the past, so we're introducing that now as well. So previously, you had to just create a separate form with maybe a new year in the label or something like that. They weren't actually linked together unless you related them. The versions actually allow you to clone existing pages. So I'm adding a new version of the demonstration form, and you can see that it defaults to clone an existing page where you're familiar with form and content here. And then we can clone it from the demonstration form. And then we'll give it the new version label, or the new label, excuse me. And then the version label allows you to provide a year in here or version 2, whatever makes sense for you as to your users. And then we'll create that. And then that will kick us off to the form editor. And you'll see that it's actually cloned the existing content from the other page for which we created the version. And what you'll see now after that, and we have one more question coming up. So we have a copy of form to use a starting point for new form. We could create a new version and then move it to the desired format or folder. Yes, that is a great point. So that's from Sue. So we have already had in some testing, we've had the use case for creating sort of a starting template. So you can create a form that, say, you have a lot of forms that have the same 2 first pages or something like that. You can create that template and store it in here and just leave it as an unpublished form. And then you can simply add a new page. And then you can come in here and clone from an existing page, and you can just grab that template from the dropdown. So there is some great added flexibility there as well. In addition to creating established forms, you can also create sort of your own starting template user experience as well.
Now that is slightly different than the version thing he showed you earlier. It's the same mechanism, but he went about it a different direction, if you noticed. I believe if you create a version, they're linked together, right, Josh?
Correct. So if I were to go to add a version from a form, it'll have clone existing page, and then you'll have your versions to select from. Additionally, you can also just add a page like you have in the past, and it can either be a content, a form, or the clone, and you'll get your listing here as well. And the other thing to know is that you can create new versions, and you'll see they actually roll up here into one place, which is really nice. You can set whatever version is current. It'll still respect the published state. So if you set, say, this one to current right now, what you're going to get is on the public side, you're not actually going to be able to see it because it's new. So let me set this here. So now you can actually see that we have the demonstration form is current, and then the 2020 version that we just created is sitting in new, and it can be modified as needed, and then you can set it to current when you're ready. What you'll also notice is these will be displayed as links, any related versions to the forms on the pages. So you'll have the ability to edit that explicit order so that when users visit those pages, you can either order them in ascending order, you can flexibly order them in however you prefer. We still have the ability to copy the public URL for each version, whether it has one version or multiple. By clicking on this, you'll see that we're actually copying that to the clipboard. They can be deleted as needed in line here as well. So this should feel pretty familiar from a UI standpoint. We've just kind of enhanced the ability to tie new versions together and create sort of a rich experience with that cloning. Additionally, you may have noticed we've actually added a filter on this page. So if you're looking for something, we don't have a super large catalog right now, but if you're looking for, you know, the demonstration content, you can actually filter these things out now. Or you'll see that it actually, let's do a form here. So hopefully this will just allow you to filter out additionally any forms while you're searching through longer lists. We do have some users out there that have pretty extensive catalogs. So this will be helpful in that regard. Again, just to reiterate, go ahead, Jason.
Before you get too far along, the version feature is new to everybody but revenue. So could you show them the public side real quick? Because they've never seen that. Yep.
Definitely. So I'm going to open up the demonstration site. And so now we have the demonstration form. And right now you're not seeing any versions because we haven't published that new one. As I mentioned before, it'll still respect the published state. So I'm going to come in here and publish the 2020 version. If at any point you want to modify the version label, that just becomes another part of the properties here, similar to the main label. I'm going to, now that I've actually published that, let's go to, you'll see that when you start having other versions, they'll start piling up over here on the right side of the intro page. The nice thing about this is if you have annual forms and you need to send people back a year or give them the opportunity to see those will still be available in the listing over here. And this is where the order is impacted when you sort those on the admin side. And of course, when you click on it, it'll show the other version we just came from. If you don't provide a version label, it'll simply just give you the label of the form. Another piece that we've introduced as well, we've just done an update to the validation so that when you're in here, you get a nice clean form, and then when you submit, you'll start to see these error messages coming through, excuse me. Does anybody have any questions on the versions piece? As Jason said, this is brand new, so if there's anything that you need further clarification on, feel free to ask. Okay. So now that we've kind of gone over the site structure, I'll just kind of recap here. I know this is a big transition for our existing user base. So for that, like the HHS example I was using, think of it we'll be working with all of you on this structure to make sure that we've got it the way that you'd like it as we're going forward. Think of it as a site is something that you want to utilize the actual homepage content for your users that land here, and any of the discovery features here. Another thing here is that all of the My Forms from the folders are going to roll up to the site. So any divisions that you want sort of under the same umbrella, so that your users can actually go to one spot to get all their forms rolled up, whether they're drafts or they're submitted, you'll want to make that linkage underneath one site. If you don't desire to use the homepage content or the guided search, then that's a good case for a folder within that site, simply for creating a delineation between privileges in the different areas. So any questions on that? I'm going to jump over to submissions next.
One more quick point on that is, as we reach out to you, the other decision will be tenants, we call them. They're not necessarily exposed to you. But if you have a division that needs to be contractually separate, like under a separate contract with NIC Montana, that would be a separate tenant. So that's another level of hierarchy that will be discussed with you. I think for most cases we can stay under our departments, but we'll be sure to check with you first.
Awesome. So again, we've got our quick jump nav over here on the left. The submissions are very similar in functionality. You'll have your different forms rolling up here. You have your start date and your end date. This is a nice little feature we've introduced. We default to the last week of submissions. So if you're looking for recent things, that'll actually just populate for you. You still have your statuses here and the ability to export to CSV or PDF. The significant difference now with submissions, with the site hierarchy that we've introduced, we've actually been able to introduce this concept where you'll have one URL to go, but all of the submissions from every division that you have permission will now roll up to the same place. So for example, in the past, HHS, Family Services, and Primary Care had to go to 2 different places, but if it's appropriate for those to roll up, you'll actually just see all of those from both divisions listed in here, if that is appropriate for your use case. So that's another nice transition. With that comes an update to the URL. So as Jason mentioned, we have the tenant now is that administrative level above your sites and your folders. So you'll have, in most cases, and like Jason mentioned, this is, per case based on contractual structure and things like that. But typically, it would be the division has one tenant. So DPHHS admin, and that's where anybody who's reviewing submissions for HHS will now go to get this. And everything they see is purely based off their privileges set up by the user admins. And so in the past, of course, you had to know your different URL for each division, but now we'll actually just have that one-stop shop. So we'll make sure if you have any questions on that, on the URL change, when you go to your sites and you click on admin dashboard, you'll notice that you're now going to get kicked off to your tenant in the admin. So you should have the URL there. If you are a user that heavily relies on bookmarks, you may need to reach out to us for the URL, or we can work out something to get you all a distribution of your new URLs for particular functionality. One more thing I wanted to show that changed in submissions. We have the ability to open up the web view like you did in the past. What you'll notice here is we actually have a drop down for downloads. So for those out there that are utilizing the stamped PDF feature, which is the feature that allows you to upload a fillable PDF and pass values to it so that you get a nicely formatted version, however, it's flexible to however you want the output document to look. In the past, you only had the opportunity to download the system generated PDF in here. If you do provide stamped PDFs for different versions, you'll be able to download those from here as well. Any questions on the submissions piece before we jump over to data sources? Okay.
I'd like to reiterate that even though all the submissions are one place, we do have the ability to just control who can see them, and that'll be the feature after data sources shows you. But it doesn't mean everybody can see everything.
That is a great point. So yeah, I'll right after data sources, we'll talk about user management. Hopefully the privilege delineation there will hopefully clear up any questions on that piece as well. So data sources, again, from a user experience, this should feel pretty familiar. You have your listing, your ability to add and remove columns and rows within the UI. You can export and import your spreadsheets as needed and do an external API link if you want these generated automatically. Similar to submissions, in the past, data sources were scoped strictly to each of your portals. So back to the HHS example, we had the primary care and the family services. They had their own sets of data sources. What we've shifted to now is that we've put the data sources on your tenant level in that administrative portal. So we have the ability to maintain data sources in one spot. And this will be very helpful to those of you who have, say, 10 to 15 different portals right now. If you have redundant data sources throughout, you'll be able to manage those in one place now. And again, these are only accessible to admins on the administrative level in your tenant here. Any questions on the data sources piece? One thing I will mention is this is a backwards compatible change. So if your sites have their own data sources and all that, they'll still populate your lists for your public users. What you'll notice is when you go into the form editor, you're going to see the data source area can now be selected. And if during the transition, when those get moved to your administrative tenant level, you'll see that error called out in the form editor. And it, as you know, for all the page editors out there, you'll just need to remediate that linkage there and publish before you can actually publish new changes out to the public. But it will work with the currently published versions that are out in the wild right now. And so for the user management piece, this has where in the past it actually kicked you off to our separate security authorization application. And this is now built into the platform of AccessGov. So there are some familiarities and similarities as before, but we have changed a few things structurally. So high level, what you can notice right now is we have users like we did in the past, but we've also introduced groups. Groups give you the ability to actually just group members that are in the system. So any list of users in here, we only have one right now in this example, but if you have, 20 to 30 users, rather than individually modifying their permissions on the user level, you now have the ability to roll up all those permissions into a group and then simply add people to them as needed. What you'll see here, and the biggest shift probably with this is the view of what the roles look like. So again, in the past, if your user managers were at the parent level, they could see their listing of different sites and any subsites and all that. But now you can actually see the entire hierarchy listed here. It is indented to kind of show you that the demonstration admin is at the top level. And then we have 2 sites, the level below that. And then within the demonstration site, we actually have the 3 folders. And this is the piece that Jason was alluding to with reviewership or page editing. That can all be scoped by simply providing roles to users or groups at this level. So let's say for this admin group, we want them to actually, what makes sense for this is to be an administrator for the entire portal. So we'll do that. One thing that I'll mention in here really quickly for our current user managers, we have refactored the roles and what privileges they actually have to hopefully give you a lot more flexibility for your different use cases. Namely, starting with the admin, in the past, you could, when you got the admin, you're able to publish and modify forms, modify data sources, review submissions. It all kind of came in one bucket. We've actually removed the reviewer piece, as well as, well, we removed the reviewer piece from the admin, excuse me. And then additionally, the user manager admin used to be the admin role with all of the user management permission added above that. We've actually broken that out now that the user manager simply manages users. So if you have use cases for people that you need to get into your administrative portal just to manage users, but they shouldn't be modifying data sources or pages or anything like that, you have the ability to do that now. So additionally, the reviewer is a la carte. So in the past, if you're a user manager admin, essentially the roles you'll want now, if you needed exactly what you had in the past, would be the user manager, the reviewer, and the admin. So we've just kind of broken those out a little bit to give you more flexibility for more specific roles. Also, a lot of people are familiar with the Power Editor add-on. That's still a piece that just needs to be added to anybody who wants that advanced form editing functionality. If you want to scope user permissions to just doing the page editing, again, we have the page editor role for that. One limitation we did have in the past is our page editors could only send for approval. Admins had to come around to publish. But now we've actually added the publisher add-on role so that you can scope people to simply editing pages, but they have the privilege to actually publish those out to your end users, modify and delete those as well as needed. So again, just another added layer of flexibility. This visitor role is new. If you remember in the past, we had sort of a superficial public role. That was just a role assigned to everybody in the system. What this visitor role is really important for is if you have a private site when you're working with us, this visitor role is what's going to give your constituents that actually should be able to visit the private portal to submit forms or view content. This is the piece that's actually going to give them that ability. So when you're working with a private site, for example, let's say, I'm going to exit out here really quick. I've created a private site visitors group. And I've added the user in here to that. And we have the private demonstration site. So everybody who's in this group will have the ability to actually log in and see your private site. Anybody else in the system who does not have that visitor role will not be able to visit the site. So you can secure your processes internally if need be. And additionally, I'm going to jump over to the users now to just show you some more of the scoping of privileges. The user role hierarchy is the same as the group one. So you have the same admin level, your sites, and the folders below them. What you'll notice is these roles do roll down. So if somebody, if you're giving an individual or a group admin permissions at the tenant level, you'll see that reflected here, that the site, they're implicitly granted admin from demonstration admin, and it rolls down again all the way through to the bottom. So the caveat being there, if you have a folder like a human resources folder that you only want a few people looking at, you don't want anybody else who's an admin or anything in the system seeing, you need to make sure that you don't give reviewership on a level above that. So in this case, we'll need to remove reviewer from the site. And we'll say example folder is private. So what's happening here is I'm only able to see submissions on the example folder level, and nobody else now can see anything in here unless they're explicitly given the reviewer role, the example folder. So are there any questions on any of the user management piece or the groups involved in that as well? Don't think we have any activity in the chat at the moment. Okay. So you'll see that we've been looking at active users here. If you want to add a user to the system, you'll see this add user button at the top. This should be pretty familiar for user managers. Now we're just requiring the first, last name, and email. And you have to give them at least one role in some level of your portal here. So for example, we'll send a new one here. You'll see that you won't be able to actually send it until you've added a role. And let's say we want this person to be a page editor and have the power editor and publisher in the demo site. So now you can see that because I've granted them the permission on the site level, they have permission on the site, and they also have that permission in all the folders below it. So you'll see when we actually send the invite that we have them in the tab now, in the invites tab. A big shift here, in the past, the expiration was 24 hours. We've bumped that up to a week. So you'll see that this expires a week from today at the time it was sent. That's just a nice little extension we put in there so that you don't necessarily have to resend invites if somebody can't get to it within 24 hours. If that does pass, similar to in the past, you can simply resend an invite by clicking this little email icon. And again, what that does is you'll see another email come through, and that will effectively expire the first one, and the new one that they need to accept will come through as well. So that is really the full extent of the new admin navigation. The biggest changes are definitely the admin site folder structure that we're moving to. It's definitely more tightly coupling any of our partners out there that have a parent site and the children portals. It will make the management for that all in one place and hopefully easier for everybody involved with that. And we have also reduced the address book and pulled out the contact page, so that simplifies the UI as well, and it gives these major functions a little more prevalence as well. So like I said, now we'll open it up. If you have any questions about any of the deployment, the new user experience, or anything at all, feel free to ask.
Hey, Josh, I'll just add a quick disclaimer. We talked about private sites. Those are coming under a new product we're calling AccessGov Enterprise, and it does have a per seat license. Just so you're not thinking we're baiting and switching you. I wanted to warn you. Everything else you saw, the folders and the new permission management, will be already on your portal when we roll out. So it's just the private sites that will come at a small charge, and that's just because we can't support the self-funded model with intranet, essentially. So you can reach out to Sam or Josh or any of us, and we can talk you through that.
Josh, this is Angela, and I have a question about, we talked about workflow, and are we any closer to getting a solution to that? Will any of these updates help with that?
That is a great question. So the workflow piece has not yet been added. That is on our roadmap. And Jason, do you mind pulling up that timeline and getting that date?
Yeah, it's Q4 for sure. I don't know if we can get much more specific than that right now.
Okay. Yeah, so the workflow is the more robust, you know, actually assigning things to people, creating different triggers and actions off of how you behave with the system. That is coming, but that is not in this release.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Do we have any more questions on structure or anything like that? So what we'll do moving forward, as I mentioned earlier, we're going to start really early in the morning on Wednesday, and we'll be doing this migration over. You'll start to see some of these things take effect. We will be working with you, as Jason mentioned earlier. We have worked with different divisions and areas within agencies and counties. So you may not even be aware that you have, you know, sister folders or sister sites within your actual entity. So we'll be working with you to see if you want to actually consolidate. So like if Missoula Clerk and Treasurer wants to consolidate with Missoula Clerk and Court, those two exist separately right now. They are two separate work orders or contracts. So we'll be per customer talking to everybody on how you guys actually want to either consolidate that or keep it siloed in your own admin and site. And we can talk about what the implications for your end users are and the advantages for each as we have those conversations. And I believe we'll get that going before the deployment because we'll just want to know before we convert so we know exactly how to transition each of you as well. Any questions or concerns on that front? Okay. Jason, did you have anything to add for the group?
No, could you reiterate the launch date one more time? I think it's Wednesday morning, right?
Yeah, Wednesday at 5 a.m. we'll start the conversion. We'll be deploying in the morning, and then we'll also be working on any manual conversions and working through things with you, get you up and running.
We will have another outreach coming with this video, and realize that we're changing a lot of your user stuff. So if we miss something, be sure to reach out, and we might have just missed one of your users or something if you're like missing an item you think you should have. Did you see Sue Ann's comment there, Josh?
Yeah. Do you have the answer for that one?
Oh, yeah. So downtime, we expect it'll be up and stable by 8. Your admin portal may not be accessible. So as we're doing the deployment, we might see a few ups and downs. We're not expecting it to be down the entire time. But then come 8 o'clock, we're going to start converting your portals. So it's probably best to stay out of admin Wednesday morning because we'll be converting you from a legacy tenant to a new one. You might be in some weird limbo state, but your end user shouldn't be affected during that time. Does that help, Sue?
Does that all include my reviewer admins as well?
Yes, possibly.
Okay, so I'll notify.
Yeah, between the
And
5
that
and
is,
8, there's possibility for admin and public interruptions.
Okay.
and as I mentioned before, I know there are a lot of users out there that rely on bookmarks and things like that. So if you have a lot of reviewers out there that are utilizing it today, when they go to their old reviewer URL, that is changing. So we may get contacted from that. If you will distribute your URLs, as I mentioned earlier, there's the one location for reviewership in administration now. So we'll get those out to you so that you can distribute to your reviewers and hopefully ease that transition as much as possible.
Do you have a outage page so that when it is out, people will be redirected to that saying it's under maintenance?
Are we doing the redirect through F5, Jason, or are we?
I was not planning on putting out a maintenance page because they should be blips. If we have any significant downtime where it gets to be over like 5 minutes or something, we could be sure to put something up though. But we're really expecting ups and downs, and we'd rather let people get in there if they can. But as a group, if you would rather have it down, we can do that as well.
And that is a good point. We have, for everybody involved in the call today, do you have a need? Would you be more comfortable with it being permanently down with a maintenance page for a few hours, or just blips throughout? And that would be to reiterate, that'd be the 5 to 8 a.m. on Wednesday. Okay, we did get either no preference or preference on a maintenance page so far. Is there anybody who would be dramatically impacted by not being able to facilitate business from 5 to 8 with a permanent maintenance page?
The counties, Josh, is all I can think.
Okay. And I guess we could do that a la carte, right, Jason? If particular users want maintenance, we could redirect those portals.
No, it's routed at the root level. It's all or nothing.
It is? Okay.
So I'll say we'll look at doing a maintenance page unless we hear back from someone who does have an issue with no accessibility to their portal, and then we'll have to lean towards that. But we do expect minimal interruptions. When we set out the video, we will have that decision. Okay.
Awesome. Well, thank you everybody again for taking the time to join. We're hopeful that we can get you all up and running and that these improvements will make the use from an admin side easier for you and a nice seamless, smooth transition for your public users as well.